He's back hoovering on a daily basis, even the kids' birthdays, asking if he missed me, but I don't buy it. Good. I wouldn't buy it. As best you can, go as little to no contact as possible. My ex-boyfriend saw my grown daughter at the post office the other day and waved at her. He's driven by my house and honked at her as he's hoovering. And if so, why would we do this? He has a supply. So it doesn't matter that he has a supply. It matters that he's getting a reaction. So he's either getting a reaction from you or the daughter. You can't go completely no contact. So that they're like, if you see him, you just ignore him completely. It doesn't even exist. When you spot the narcissist, should I tell him you're gaslighting me or pretend the game? So there's an aspect here. I need you to understand like two sides of this. Okay. One, when you spot the narcissist and you tell them, a lot of times it's going to get flipped back on you. It's going to get told to you for the narcissist. Now, as soon as you educate the narcissist that they're the narcissist, they're going to switch it back around and put it back on you. You're actually the narcissist. Now you're emotionally abusing me. Now you're gaslighting me. Happens all the time. Okay. So if you do that, be ready for it. And the second thing is when you actually are at the place like, hey, you're gaslighting me now. A lot of times that's what people start doing when they start stepping into their power of like, okay, no, I know what's going on and I'm not taking your BS. The problem is if you just call out the behavior, but you don't change your exposure to it, you're enabling the behavior even more and you're telling them that it's okay to do that. So you need to be able to understand, like there has to be a difference of what actually happens based on what you say. Now, you have to remember, a boundary is not you putting rules and regulations on another person. So you can't limit another person and be like, oh, I'm putting a boundary on you. That's not a boundary, okay? That's rules and regulation. A boundary is for you. A boundary is you saying, hey, I don't actually want to be in a relationship with someone who yells at me like this. So you're going to yell at me. I'm going to remove myself from the room. You're going to keep doing it and ignoring my boundaries. I'm going to remove myself from the relationship. Like this is why boundaries a lot of times do not work in narcissistic relationships because the narcissist doesn't care about you. They don't care about your boundaries. They don't care about what you're actually thinking or your emotions or your feelings, anything like that. All they care about is what they want in the moment. Like if you're new here, the reason why I know that is because that is how I was. That is the person that I was always showing up every single time. Do I still struggle with it? Yes, because I'm human. This is how my brain is programmed. And so working on actually breaking that down and changing the story that I believe is the same exact process of how we help people get free from narcissistic abuse, because otherwise you will always stay in a trauma bond believing the story that you tell yourself. The problem is a lot of times you don't know you're telling yourself a story. You don't know you're believing a lie. You don't know you're believing a fantasy, and you decide to stay in a toxic relationship hoping it gets better, and you're wondering why you can't. Okay? I blocked him everywhere, and he would come up with new email addresses. He accused me of calling me with private numbers. I didn't, and he said, yeah, like with blocking him everywhere, then yeah, just ignore him. Do narcissists get happy when they go get another relationship, and is it going to last? So typically not, unless the narcissist is actually going to change, because they're going to take themselves into the next relationship. I feel overmined with no emotion. If the last card, I've gone no contact. I'm worried this is temporary and he's going to manipulate me back somehow. There's a high probability of it because that all depends on you. Him manipulating you back into the relationship has nothing to do with him. All it has to do with is you. How are you going to grow, heal, change, and develop? How are you going to work on yourself? Otherwise, he'll bring you back. Hoovering, trauma bond, every single time. If you're worried about that, if you're struggling with that, there's two things that I'd like to mention. Either escape toxicity, links in the bio, or clarity challenge, claritychallenge.net, because those two things are what we start to walk people through how to break them free. If you're like, I don't know if I want to do that, okay, try the escape toxicity challenge. 7-day challenge. There's like 30 videos in it. We walk you step by step. It's $7. That way you can actually start to understand the process that we use. And if it works for you, then the clarity challenge will be like, okay, I'm actually committed now. I'm actually ready to start working on breaking the trauma bond. Until you change the story in your life, you'll always be stuck. So you can check escapetoxicity.com. What can I do to make a narcissist interested in our mutual kid? Absolutely nothing. The narcissist is going to be interested in your mutual kid as much as he's interested in you. If he's not interested in you, he's not going to be interested in the kid. Unless the kid is actually making him look better, nothing's going to happen. Bro, can I say something? Please stop talking. You could have said something, but instead you typed that. So type whatever. I can read it. I'm trying to catch up on all these. Narcissists don't change. They change partners. Yep. Next person, next person, next person. Because they're unwilling to be honest with themselves. They're unwilling to actually uncover the shit that's inside. Like one of the scariest things for me was sitting with the question of like, am I a man or am I a monster? Like what is actually underneath? And starting to pull out and deal with the shame and the pieces that are actually inside and not let it take over. Like that's a huge difference. Do narcissist parents have children that grow up to resent them? Oftentimes, or narcissistic, or they fall for narcissistic people as well. Do children of narcissists grow up to resent their parents? Oh, well. Y'all ask the same question at the same time. That's crazy. How do I convince him to sign the divorce papers, international divorce? Ooh, that's a tough one with international divorce. Unless you can find something through the court system that you can like push it through because he's unwilling to sign, I don't have good advice for you. And mainly because I'm not all in that field. But I do know that there's some states, there's some countries that you can actually push it through of saying, hey, this is what I'm getting from him. Nothing's happening, and you can push it through that way. Okay. But I don't know all that. So they pretend to be happy with the new supply as they love bomb them. Yes, 100%. When you see a narcissist, when you're watching a narcissist with a new supply, get out the popcorn because you're watching a show. You're watching the narcissist placate to another person, love bombing them and making them feel like they're the best in the world to trigger you and to make themselves feel better about themselves. Okay. A narcissist doesn't go to the next person and it's just a magical thing. Like they want you to believe. Like you thought that when you first got with them, right? Like this was so amazing. Like this is my soulmate. Well, there was someone else probably before you that was looking at you being like, oh, man, he changed everything for you. Like it's a cycle. Okay. It's a cycle. Most times you disappear from the toxic person's life just like that because they really don't care. 100%. Does one become a narcissist or are they born with certain characteristics? So a lot of times it comes out of trauma and from their upbringing, not just trauma like they got abused in a certain way, but it could be emotional abuse. It could be emotional neglect. It could be shame, not understanding how to deal with the guilt and shame that produces defense mechanisms that actually starts pushing that way. Why are you saying narcissists don't change? Just say you change. So a narcissist is incapable of change if they're unwilling to be honest about themselves. That help like understand it? Because like I said, they don't change. And then I followed it up with saying because they're unwilling to be honest. So that's like the difference there. Narcissist is incapable of change if they're unwilling to be honest about themselves. When's the last time you had your narcissist actually be honest with you? You're like, well, I haven't had them be honest with me. Okay. Well, that's why you need to leave the relationship because you're not dealing with a person that's actually being honest. You don't even know who you're dealing with. Okay. Have you done a YouTube video on why some NPD have paranoia? I think I might, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Do most narcissists want divorce? A lot of narcissists want divorce, but they don't want to ask for it because they don't want to look bad. They'd rather have you ask for divorce. That way they can slow it down and still look like the good person and the good parent in the relationship. It's a really good question. Happy Easter. I want to tell you that I appreciate helping others make a better choice. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Has every narcissist several supplies trauma bonded? Typically, a lot of times it's very common. Why do narcissists stay in relationships as long as 20 years then? A lot of times because they're in control of the chaos and there's no reason for them to actually get out because they're either getting what they want or getting a reaction from the other person. One thing to become self-aware, but a total thing to stay self-aware, 100%. 100%. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of times people think if I could just get them self-aware, then they'd figure it out. A lot of narcissists are self-aware and they just don't care. Like you need to understand there's narcissists that understand the things they do that is actually being destructive to other people, but they explain it away. They change it so they can't be at fault. So it has to be someone else. Yes, exactly. They act like the victim. 100%. What's the most interesting supply for the narcissist? Is it attention? I would say not attention, but I would say reaction because attention would fall underneath that. So if I get you to react in a certain way that gives me attention, then 100%. But if I get you to react just to react, then I'm still in control of you. Like that's the piece that like brings a lot of supply for the narcissist. You have to understand supply is positive and negative. Okay. Like a lot of times people think like, oh, I told the narcissist what's what. I called him X, Y, and Z. And I told him that. Like, okay, you just gave him supply. Like it doesn't really change anything. A lot of times you have to understand it can be negative or positive. So you can say, I love you. And you could also say F you. And the other person would still switch in their mind of like, oh my gosh, they're still infatuated with me because I'm actually the best person in the world. Like that's how it gets switched around. Okay. If you're curious how this stuff actually like gets switched around, and if you're the narcissist, you can go to escapetoxicity.com. You can sign up for a 7-day challenge. It's $7. Check it out because there you're able to see about reactive abuse, about the guilt and the shame that you're dealing with, and with wondering, hey, was it me? And am I the problem? It's me, right? You know, like what is actually going on? Been discarded 3 times now to never go. I need to never go back again. So reach out for help. Either jump in the escape toxicity or go to rawmotivations.com, work with you one-on-one. Like we have a lot of people that we work to actually break free because that trauma bond has to break and you have to start moving in a different direction if you actually want to break free completely. Line between narcissist and sociopath. It's a lot of different pieces there. It'd be hard for me to touch on all of it. Basically, think of it as like sociopath doesn't touch into even like the cognitive empathy. A lot of times it's more reckless, rule breaking. A lot of times more on the criminal side. There's a couple of other things. I don't have time to dive into all of it, but yeah. So same thing with like the malignant NPD and a psychopath. So like what you want to consider is like NPD is like on a spectrum. So you have like people with narcissistic traits and tendencies. You have people that are narcissists, you know, people that are diagnosed narcissists, NPD, like however you want to like divide that out. And then you have sociopath and then you have psychopath. So think of it this way. All psychopaths are narcissists. Not all narcissists are psychopaths. Okay. But it's on like that sliding scale. Do most narcissists change their facade when a reverse discard happens? Yes. A lot of times when a reverse discard happens, like making you leave and you feel like the bad person, then they turn around of like, oh, I'm the good person. I'm the victim. I can't believe you left me. Have you got any advice for narcissists apart from therapy in order to work on him and herself? So the first thing is for them to get into therapy. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of them are opposed to it. The second thing is a lot of times they'll get into therapy. And then when they get into therapy, nothing will actually change. And then you'll be like, well, what's the point of this? Okay. Number one thing that I think is like the biggest thing, and I recommend to every narcissist I ever coach with or talk to, is actually getting them involved in Wake Up Warrior. That is one of the biggest things that actually helped me. The thing you have to understand about this, okay, warning for everybody out there, the thing you have to understand about this is a narcissist that approaches Wake Up Warrior will typically do two things. One, they'll look at it, they'll watch the first video, and they'll say the guy's full of BS, and they'll run away with it, okay? Like there's been over 60,000 men that have gone through this program. Like it's not BS, okay? The second thing is you also have a narcissist that will just throw money at it, and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to do it, and they run through the program super fast, and they're like, I did it, I'm changed, all better, and nothing's actually changed. So like whatever you actually try to say, like, hey, do this, you need to only look at the actions. What is the actual result? If you can't track the result of them actually improving, them actually getting better, you're still living in a pipe dream and a fantasy, and you need to walk away from the relationship and start breaking that trauma bond. Otherwise, you'll always stay stuck. Why always use a carrot of money? Narcissists will use a carrot of anything. If money's the best thing, then yeah, absolutely, they'll keep it going. It'll be money, it'll be sex, it'll be relationship, it'll be marriage, it'll be whatever it is. They'll always take whatever you want and keep extrapolating and pulling it farther and farther from you time and time again. I'm going through your workbook from fantasy to reality. I don't have one here. They're like on my bookshelf over there, but I don't want to like jump off. From fantasy to reality, you can actually get it on Amazon. And then we do have the new one that's coming out shortly called From Regret to Gratitude. But we're working on a new publisher, trying to figure out how we can actually get it out for free. You just pay for the shipping, but that's something that hopefully is going to come out here soon.